I worry about everybody else's needs before mine.
Yes.
And I'm at a point in my life now where I'm not kind of like F everybody else, but I'm kind of like, all right, I got to worry about myself here.
Yes.
So I'm putting myself first, but I don't want to lose what my husband's needs are in the process. How do I balance that?
Yeah, it's not a balance. It's it's synergistic. It's not either or. The more that you take care of your needs, the more, oh man, this is what we do. We're starting the whole repair lab focusing on this instead of, we used to do it towards the end. Now we're doing it at the beginning. How will the repair lab help me see my husband's needs without losing my own needs? That is so what it does. The mirror game helps you understand his needs and not let go of your own and be like, okay, I got that. And also, here's me. It helps you feel seen. It helps you feel heard. And when they're unable to do that, it helps you know how to set a boundary. We do a whole bunch. When we dive into needs, we do a lot of like boundary work and boundary work mostly to reduce the harshness of boundaries so that they don't have to be this aggressive electric fence. It's this knowing what you need is how you balance.
Yeah, I think one of the things I struggle with is when I tell my husband a boundary, the boundary word is hard for him because he looks at that as a punishment on him,
Yeah.
not something that I'm asking for. And it's a struggle because it feels like no matter how soft or nice I say, hey, this is what I need. Could you do this for me?
No.
It feels like a punishment to him.
Yeah, I teach you a different way to do it. So, first of all, if he doesn't come, that's fine. Your relationship will still radically change. If he does come, that would be awesome. Boundaries. This is why I teach specifically on how to do boundaries because online it's mostly taught in theoretic. So it's like you say, okay, I need this. I need this, and I need then you just in theory you're like, okay, great. I say the thing that I need. But boundary actually is knowing what yourself enough to know what you need in each moment and then gently taking care of that thing. So it sounds, here's the difference. I'm in a crowded room. A boundary is, ooh, I'm getting a little overstimulated. I think I'm going to step out. That's a boundary. It's not a demand. It's not a request. It doesn't require anything from anyone. That's a boundary.
Agreed.
Right. But a lot of boundaries online are like, hey, I really need you to do this. That's not a boundary. That's a request. So we work through, okay, how do we make requests? How do we collaborate instead of control? Because I used to be like, got it. I will finally let somebody help me. I dare to do it, which I don't want to do. I'm already tied up in knots. And then I'm like, okay, I need this. Will you help me with this? And then if there's a whiff of a negative response or no follow through, I was so pissed. And I was like, what? Why do I even try? And then I shifted and I started to realize how do we do this? How do I invite you on the journey that I'm on of caring for myself instead of what I was doing, which was a little bit different. And I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm answering the question of how do we do this in the repair lab?
Right. No, I get it.
I don't know. I'm not in your conversation. So I hope you know that I'm not.
No. Yeah, no, I understand that. Can you touch on, so to use your example of you're in a crowded room, you're like, I need a little space. I'm going to go stand outside for a minute. Um, if you say that to your partner, you're saying what you need in that moment. Obviously, you can't control how your partner takes it. But for instance, if your partner says back to you, you're always in control. Here you go again, controlling the situation. How do you help both sides in that situation so the partner can realize I'm not putting a demand on him. I'm simply stating something that I need for whatever the reason is, either something escalated or I need to give myself a minute to keep my head straight. Um, what does that part of the scene method like? So
Yes.
you're watching both sides of the fence, I guess, and realizing, oh, okay, now he's triggered. Let's figure out what he needs. Like, and how do I hold
Yeah.
space for that again without losing myself in that moment of saying, wait a minute, I just said I need something.
Yeah.
I want to give him a moment to hear what he has to say too, but I don't want to lose myself in that moment and then just worry about now he has a need and he's triggered.
Yes, right. Okay. Yes, we definitely do this. This is the thing we practice more than anything else over and over and over again. It's called the mirror game. And part of the mirror game is knowing when not to play it. Meaning it's not immediate. Like what you're describing, how this would go down is I want to remember what he said. Can you be him and I'll be you? Because I can't remember what you said he say, and I feel like you really know. So
No,
let me be you first. Let me be you first. Okay.
okay.
I'm feeling really overstimulated. I think I'm gonna step out.
There you go again. You're always in control of the situation.
Oh, whoa. I think that landed on you different than I meant it. When I get back, can we talk about that?
Okay. Yeah,
Sounds
usually
really good.
that's helpful because usually in the moments like that, it's just an immediate I feel stepped on, like my need was not met or heard. So then to your point, it sounds like I'm just mirroring back to him.
Well, what I'm doing right there is not that. I just told you how to set another boundary. That's a double boundary we just did. You took care of yourself. You said, I'm going to take care of yourself. You let him know.
Yeah.
He got offended by that. And he said, I'm curious about that. I have no bandwidth for it right now. By saying, it sounds like that impacted you different than I meant. I want to hear about it when I get back. I'm too dysregulated to do it now, but I do want to hear about it when I get back. And then when you get back, this is where the healing happens. So the mirror game is so powerful because it sounds like your husband in this story is feeling blamed and defensive and attacked by something that you meant neutrally that had nothing to do with him, which means he's got a lot of underlying stuff. And if you, in the mirror game, what you do is you go, okay, so how'd that land on you? And you start to understand, oh, so you were feeling attacked or controlled. That feeling makes sense. I don't know why yet. Help me understand what felt controlling about that. Okay, interesting. And when what you're doing, and this sounds great as I'm explaining it, you won't do this if you've never practiced it. That's how we ended up with the repair lab as it is because I taught people this in a lecture style, like theory. And they were like, yeah, got it. Totally makes sense because they would have the insight here.
Right. Not in the moment.
And then they'd go have a life and I'd get a DM and they'd be like, it didn't work. Or they get an email or whatever. And they'd be like, it didn't work. And I used to do Q&A style. So I'd do like I'd teach you and then I'd have an open Q&A and you'd ask me a question and I'd be like, oh, you didn't practice, you know it? You don't know it. So when I actually asked, what did you say? They felt like they were saying the right thing. But even if you say the right words, if your body has not experienced safety when saying them before, they will come out like an attack. The missing piece in a lot of communication work is saying the right words means nothing if you don't have this inner safety when you say them.
Yeah, it's the tone, it's the approach. There's more to it. We're very visual, for me anyway, and I read body language before I even hear the word come out of your mouth.
Yes, exactly. And your partner's the same way. Your test for yourself to know if your conversation's gonna get anywhere is, am I in a space where I can be curious about his perspective? Because if the only thing you want is for him to be curious about yours in that moment, you're actually not ready yet to have that conversation. It doesn't mean abandoning you. Both people in the mirror game, both people get hurt. Both people share their perspective. And the way you start is, hey, when you did this or said this, I thought you meant this, or it landed on me like this, but you probably had a good intention. So what am I missing? That's not abandoning yourself. That's understanding him first. And the reason for that, the selfish reason for that is twofold. One, people feel freer to understand you when they feel understood. And two, you are saying to your brain, you're testing your brain, am I ready to resolve or not? If you can't hear him and you can't be curious about him yet, you're not ready to resolve. You're ready to make him admit that he's the bad guy, which me too. That's why this is the way it is, because I realized, oh, this is what's happening. And that's what happened with my couples. And it's very counterintuitive because when you are the hurt one, you feel like, well, obviously I need to be heard first. You get mini heard first and then you're like, okay, but what am I missing? See if you can be curious. Then you start to go back and forth more. Obviously Repair Lab, I walk you through it and it makes more sense. But here's the thing is that connection repair is a 3-step process. And most of us were taught to start at step 3, and step 3 creates conflict. It does not resolve it. The 3-step process is step 1, compassionate curiosity towards yourself, AKA regulate yourself. Turn to yourself and be like, ooh, what's going on? That's the scene questions. What am I scared might be true? What was I embarrassed about in that moment? What was I expecting? Did we agree on those expectations? What do I need? So step 1 is compassionate curiosity towards yourself. Step 2 is compassionate curiosity towards them. And then step 3 is asking for compassionate curiosity from them to you. And when you break that order, you'll get stuck in conflict. Even if you start at step 2, like it's something that a lot of overfunctioners do and probably what you used to do if you always put other people's needs in front of your own, is you just go, oh, okay, well, whatever. What do you feel? What do you need? And once they feel good, you're like, okay, we're all done. And that actually creates long-term conflict because 1, you'll get resentful. And 2, you'll prove to them, yeah, you did. They are the most important part. Their perspective is the only one. And that's actually bad for them and for you in a moment. But what you're doing and what we're talking about doing in this story, coming back and getting curious about them, is starting with, hey, here's my perception. I might be missing something. What am I missing? And you start with the curiosity for them. If you can't do that, you are not ready to resolve conflict. You're ready to get them to admit that they hurt you, which will break trust, not build it. Because if they land at, yeah, you're right, I did hurt you, your brain goes, ha, knew it. I feel better. And in the short term, you feel better. But what I watch happen, I work with couples who've been together for 42 years, 38 years. And what happens when you do that is it snowballs and you'll wonder, why does the hurt partner seem to get hurt more and more frequently and be more and more sensitive? And it keeps getting worse and worse. And the apologizing partner or the offending partner, the one who keeps screwing up, it's like they could never get out of the doghouse. And neither of you like the cycle and you don't know why. And if you only have the hurt person gets heard, the person in the doghouse never becomes a human. They're always a villain. And the hurt person is always hypervigilantly waiting for the next time this guy hurts them. So if you don't hear both sides, if you can't humanize the person who hurt you as somebody who actually didn't mean to hurt you, then you won't be able to connect. Also, okay, now here's the next level, which I don't talk about often because of the context I'm usually in. Also, if you are talking to somebody who did in fact mean to hurt you, if you come with genuine curiosity, not abandoning what happened to you, genuinely being compassionately curious about their background and accepting them wholly as what they're saying, you will discover, I have discovered truly nefarious people with this method because I am not trying, I'm truly listening. And I'm like, okay, so where did that come from? So it made sense why? It made sense why? I mean, I've understood somebody is doing an abusive behavior for a very human reason. And I went, oh, ooh, we got to work on that. That's good to know. But if I hadn't been compassionately curious about them first, I wouldn't have known.